Today I'm looking at On Her Majesty's Secret Service, released in 1969 and directed by Peter Hunt, the editor of the previous James Bond films. For years he'd been having a go at Cubby Broccoli and saying, look, I've had enough with editing, I just want to direct. And so he had it written into his contract for You Only Live Twice that he would come back for On Her Majesty's Secret Service and be able to direct it. So, let's see how that turned out. The story once again pits James Bond against Spectre head honcho Blofeld, played this time around by Telly Savalas. Blofeld's world domination plot is once again about holding countries to ransom. He now has the ability to make all animals and plant life on the planet infertile by releasing this gas. I'm not sure quite what he wants in exchange. Might be money, might be diamonds, or, maybe I'm thinking of other films here. Anyway, he is going to set this biological weapon on the world via 12 young women. These women, that include a young Joanna Lumley, are called by Blofeld his angels of death. Bond enters the scene at the start of the film, rescuing Contessa Teresa, or Tracy for short, played by Diana Rigg. Bond is attacked by some goons that steal Tracy away. However, Bond later discovers that these men work for Tracy's father, Draco, who is the head of a European crime syndicate. Bond wants information that will lead him to Blofeld, and Draco says that if Bond romances and marries his daughter, he will give over Blofeld's whereabouts. Well, it turns out that Blofeld is actually trying to claim the title of Count Balthazar de Blochamp from a genealogist in the UK called Sir Hilary Bray. Bond then poses as Bray in order to gain access to Blofeld, who is currently hiding out in the Swiss Alps. How Blofeld doesn't see through Bond's disguise when he turns up at his lab in the Swiss Alps, I have no idea. They only met a couple of years ago, if you can remember, in that massive volcano. But I suppose we have a new Bond, we have a new Blofeld, so just get on with it. Bond tries to get Blofeld out of Switzerland so he can be arrested, but that plot fails, and instead Draco's men muscle in and, along with Tracy, descend upon the Alps Lodge and blow it up as Blofeld and Bond chase each other away in bobsleighs. Blofeld escapes yet again, and the ending of the film turns tragic as Bond and his new wife, Tracy, leave their wedding. Phew! That's quite plot heavy for a Bond film. In fact, this Bond film, not that I've read the original Ian Fleming novel, but Bond fans say that this is the closest that a Bond film gets to its source material. That all comes from new director Peter Hunt, who had been working on the series, as I say, for many years, but he wanted to strip away all of those gadgets and actually just get back to the heart of what James Bond was. As I said, this is Peter Hunt's directorial debut, and so that was kind of set in stone. What wasn't was who was going to replace Sean Connery as James Bond. They were really stuck until a rather cocky Australian model called George Lazenby came in, and they found exactly what they were looking for. They all made a conscious decision that the new James Bond should match as much as possible Sean Connery. Obviously, they were really scared that the cinema-going public wouldn't accept a new James Bond. In fact, George Lazenby said that in order to get the role, he went to the same barber as Sean Connery and asked for a Sean Connery haircut. He went to Sean Connery's tailor and got a suit that Sean Connery never picked up. In order to get around the fact that they had an unknown as James Bond, they quite rightly put all their energy into securing a great actress to act alongside him, and that's how they ended up with Diana Rigg, who is absolutely fantastic as Tracy in this film. She was a big name at the time. She was Emma Peel in The Avengers on TV, and she is very different to any other Bond girl that we've had so far. I think a lot of it is down to director Peter Hunt's want to get more from the characters. He spends a lot of time with conversational pieces between Tracy and Bond. This is a James Bond with a real love story. This isn't just wham bam thank you ma'am, that we have a love montage segment in the film with Tracy and Bond doing horse riding, all set to a really melancholy song by Louis Armstrong. This film does still have those great action moments. The opening of this film starts with an action sequence that is fantastic, one of the best in a Bond. Bond up against these goons, smashing them about in the water, and there is real impact. You feel every single one of those punches, and it's fantastic. The bits of the film I don't like are when the film tries to tie it into the previous entries, and you shouldn't be doing that, I don't think, with a new James Bond actor. You should be setting him up as somebody different from Sean Connery. When this film came out, it didn't make as much as You Only Live Twice, but, George Lazenby had already quit the role, or maybe he'd been fired. The kind of story surrounding how George Lazenby left the role differ depending on who you talk to. He'd been given some bad advice, it turned out, by his agent. His agent was like, you've done this film. The second that you do a Bond film, Bond is dead. This is 1969. Nobody's going to be watching these films anymore. How wrong was he? So George Lazenby, quit the role thinking he'd be on to doing some really cool, hip, films like Easy Rider. That never came to pass. I think there's so much to like about this James Bond film. And if you like this film, you're also in the company of people like Christopher Nolan, who really enjoys this film and cites it as an inspiration for setting the climax of Inception in a very similar Swiss Alp lodge. Whereas I don't think this film is as fun as Goldfinger or as enriching, for me personally, as From Russia with Love. I really enjoy those two films a bit more than On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but On Her Majesty's Secret Service is up there for me as a great Bond film, and also just a really good action film. But by the time this film came out into the cinema, yet again, Saltzman and Broccoli were on the lookout for a new Bond. So please join me on Wednesday next week for my review of Diamonds Are Forever, a very different film to the one that I've just reviewed. But anyway, thank you very much for listening to my thoughts about On Her Majesty's Secret Service. Please let me know your thoughts about the film in the comments down below, and I'll see you on Wednesday for my review of Diamonds Are Forever. Thank you very much. Goodbye.